really important that we remember and preserve and celebrate our heritage and our old historic buildings. As land becomes more constrained, we have to be more imaginative. But I think the more people can be proud and demonstrate that pride in the place that they spend their time and they live and they bring their children up, and we're definitely going in the right direction. But it's hard turning a city, making those big changes at a scale takes time, and it takes a lot of investment.
Welcome to the People and Property Equals Progress podcast, brought to you by Lambeth Smith Hampton. Here we go beyond the bricks and mortar and take a deep dive into the fascinating stories behind the business. What makes LSH unique isn't the property market that they operate in, it's the people that drive it forward. The breadth and diversity, the imagination and the ambition of their people. Every episode, we'll sit down with an inspiring guest and they'll share their journey, their vision and their passion. So let's get started. Thank you so much, Alan, for joining the podcast. I can't wait to hear your story. First of all, can you explain who you are, why we're here today, and what you're going to bring to the table?
Thank you, and thank you very much for the invite. Thank you for having me. It's a great privilege, actually. So my name's Alan Richards, and I wear a number of different hats, really, I guess. I'm one of the executive team at Southend-on-Sea City Council, and I've got the overarching responsibility for all of our place-based services. So everything across the public realm, from planning and building through to building control, right the way through to regeneration, but also all our regulatory services and enforcement teams and things like that. So lots of stuff in between. Yeah, also the privilege of looking after our housing portfolio and all our housing stock and things. So quite a wide-reaching role covering all sorts of public realm and built environment teams.
And you've already been overseeing something very exciting today.
I have not overseeing today, but certainly taking part. A really different day for me today. So we started the day down at the Southend Pier this morning, where we've just done our Poppies on the Pier event, where we had a whole range of different VIPs early morning this morning before it all opened to the public. And we've had, I think it's the largest poppy display anywhere in the UK, where we've managed to collect poppies from all over the world, actually. One of our staff had the idea back early in the summer of seeing if we can generate some interest in knitted poppies. So people all over the world have been knitting and crocheting poppies, and I think altogether we've had well over 110,000 poppies knitted and sent in to us. And it was quite inspiring, actually, this morning, reading some of the messages from people who have been doing the knitting or stringing them together and putting them out on the pier. Some really interesting stories about some very elderly people who are bedbound, knitting away and finding a way to contribute to things that are going on in the community. We've had a whole range of local knitting groups that have sprung up in response to this, who are now going to continue. So there's a really strong social side to it all as well, really nice community feel to it. I didn't do the knitting, but we did all volunteer to do stitch a bag of poppies onto chains. And
it's
then
very multi-generational knitting now. I mean, I think Tom Daly made it quite sexy. My niece is a knitter, and she knitted me a poppy 2 years ago, and it was the first knit one I saw. And I think when you realise that someone's put graft and time and love into it, it means so much more. And I think that is the whole point of having a poppy, like for us to remember and actually go to a place where we've got to feel grateful with where we are today. So that is a lovely thing you've done today.
Absolutely, yeah, very poignant, really good thing, good start to the day.
Amazing. And now you're here on a podcast. Yeah, and you've not done a podcast before.
I haven't done this sort of podcast before. We do bits and pieces at work, obviously, from time to time, and press bits and pieces. Amazing. Yeah, but not my first time in a professional studio.
Well, so Alan, part of this podcast is we know that there are bricks and mortar in everywhere, and especially in councils, but this is about the people behind. And so I want to know from you, to start with, place or a property that's changed your life and why.
One of the places I might have talked about was the pier, which we've already covered. Didn't grow up locally, okay. So my early years, I've kind of moved around all over the place. So I spent a lot of time in Tewkesbury, had a lot of my youth around Tewkesbury Abbey, where I went to school there. And then moved down to Devon with my family. So then actually choosing the pier, I get that, because that's your new identity, because a pier is somewhere that brings families together. It's something amazing on the coast where we collect as a community. I think it's a lot of things to a lot of people, and it's particularly in my mind today after this morning. And you read about the stories that people sent in with those tributes and why the pier is important to them. And there's people who literally make a trip to the pier every week. They want to walk down the pier and back. There are people from all over the world. We have poppies from Australia, New Zealand. There's stories from Vancouver and from all corners of the world, really, where people had sent in, whether it be 50 or 100 or a sack of poppies that they've been knitting either individually or communities. But there's lots of history to the pier. It means a lot to local people. It's probably the first thing people think about when they think of Southend as a city. It's also an unbelievable structure. A mile and a third of steel and wood going out into the middle of the estuary is quite something to look after. And I don't look after it in my portfolio now, but I did for quite a few years. And it's a complicated, historic listed.
Do they build piers anymore like that? Like you think of Brighton Pier and Southend, but I don't think it's something that is part of our property developers package now.
There's some being built in connection with the Uber boats to make sure that those can get out to some of the new developments along the river. But I don't know that we've built anything at the scale of the Southend Pier. But obviously, it had to be very long to get out to the shipping lane, because when the tide goes out, that is mud for a really long way. Property means a lot of things to a lot of people, isn't it? And I had an experience last year. We were invited to a day at Heron Tower, which is I'd never been there before, and I walked into reception in there, and it was mind blowing. There's a tropical fish tank in reception, which is the size of our house probably. One of my loves of the past was scuba diving. We used to love it. It's not so much since we've had children, but walking into buildings like that, so buildings can be an expression. I don't know what was going through the architect's mind when he designed that building, but it's a fantastic building to walk into. Real significant impression when you walk in and you stand there trying to look at the receptionist and gazing at batfish and whatever it is swimming around in a tank behind you. And then some of the technology in that building is fantastic.
Really so you're definitely, you've got two different sides of you, like the completely traditional sides and then the brand new, mind-blowing, belittling you sites as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the built environment is an eclectic mix of both, isn't it? That's really important, that we remember and preserve and celebrate our heritage and our old historic buildings, but at the same time that we're really forward-looking around the type of construction, the type of developments that we're bringing forward, and where our older buildings are getting tired, the way in which we look after them and renovate them and bring them and give them modern purpose, I think is also really important. But yeah, there's definitely some exciting, it's an exciting world, I think, isn't it? But as land becomes more constrained, we have to be more imaginative to what we would do with our spaces.
I mean, you especially play spaces are so important. I'm a mother, and it is something that I grew up, that's where we went to express ourselves, to play football, to meet friends. Nowadays, we need to entice children away from technology. We need to entice them to these play spaces. How do you make that the place of choice for them?
One of privilege to look after our parks and open spaces as well in Southend. And I think that whole public realm piece, so not only the very deliberate parks, but the wider public realm is so important to creating nice, friendly, safe-feeling, green, environmentally friendly places that we can spend our time, live and work. And playgrounds is a prime example. Our councillors at the moment are very, very excited about playgrounds, and we're doing some work to replace 4 or 5 of them at the moment, and want to make sure that we sustain that as a programme of renewal. And they're really important to our communities. They're important to our children and young families, as you said, to get out and play. And I think it's also important that we make sure we've got the right spaces for our children as they get a little bit older as well. So mine are 11 and 13 now, so not they still enjoy bits of playgrounds, but there you can see that they enjoy different things when they go out into the parks and open spaces. But yeah, really important to get people out and about.
And whilst nature is so important for mental health, there is always the threat of urban sprawl. And I'm sure, working for the council, is it always a juggle with, do we need this land space? Do we need this green space? How do you weigh up those decisions? They must be really challenging and a lot of pressure on you.
A really difficult pressure, and particularly somewhere like Southend, where the city boundary is pretty much built up to the boundary at the moment. So our opportunities for significant growth are heavily constrained. Brownfield land development is complicated, expensive. That's not to say that necessarily greenfield land development isn't complicated and expensive, but it brings different challenges. We're going through our local plan process at the moment, so there's a huge amount of evidence gathering about how we do that to make sure that we can provide the homes that we need for the future, the infrastructure that's needed to support all of that, and I mean, hard transport infrastructure and services infrastructure, but also the social infrastructure around, doctors, nurses, dentists, all those things that people desperately need, which are often the reason why people are opposed to new development, because the existing infrastructure is creaking. How can we possibly cope with more? So I think it's really important that we make sure we deal with that infrastructure first and create really nice, good places that will be good in the long term for people to live and bring up their families in, and that our children have places that they can afford to buy in the future. Because I don't want mine living with me forever, as lovely as they are.
No, me neither. You talked then about coping strategies, and I'm interested, like with the funding in the public sector being strained so much and teams getting smaller, how important is it to have someone like Lambeth Smith Hampton to rely on for their expertise, to outsource so that you can still exist and make the ambitions and the gains that you want?
Yeah, I mean, I think we lean into our private sector partners in a number of different ways, and I think the relationship that I've had with Lambeth Smith Hampton over the years has been important in a number of different different ways. So, funnily enough, my first job was with a company that's now owned by Lambert Smith Hampton. So many years ago, I worked for Countrywide Property Management. Very, very long time ago, which was later bought out by Lambert, or become part of the wider Lambert Smith Hampton group. So absolutely. So that's so my roots with Lambert Smith Hampton go a long way back, and then since then, paths have crossed regularly for a whole range of reasons. We're working closely with Steve Norris and his team around one of our really big estate renewal programs at the moment, a Better Queensway project, which we're just going on site with. We've got £15 million of highways infrastructure funding, so we're on site now. The site compound is going up now, and we're due to be in the ground next month. That's a significant piece of road infrastructure there that will unlock the housing development. So just what I was saying about that infrastructure first piece, we're getting in there and creating the public realm, which will set the context for future development. And the piece of work that Lambert Smith Hampton is doing with us at the moment is looking at how we can best bring forward the housing elements of that development, having already de-risked it and done a lot of the placemaking work to set the foundations for it. So it's a great piece of work to be involved in it with them, and we're really pleased to be working with them on it.
On that, there must be lots of things that you've done that you're proud of. But what's the proudest give back that you've done for the community?
Oh wow! Again, so we've done some really interesting projects over the years. We delivered one of the first, I think it was the first, combined public and academic library facility in the middle of Southend. So we did a joint project with the college and the university, and all agreed to pool our collective libraries and make them all available to the public and to all the students as well, and built a new building to accommodate all of that. It's been about probably 10 years ago or so, maybe a little longer now, and it's been working really well. What's interesting at the moment is the change in, so there's a huge attachment to books and being able to pick up a book and read it.
Yeah, we've gone
interesting,
full circle,
yeah, we
haven't
have, because the university at the moment are thinking, well, actually, most of our literature is digital now, and everything's online, so I'm not sure we need the space to be used in the same way. So, again, it's emphasising that importance of making sure that what we create is flexible and can be repurposed into the future, to make sure that these buildings can live on and do other things as we all evolve. We talked already about parks, but our parks and open spaces are things that our people are so proud of, and we're really lucky in Southend to have 7 miles of seafront and beachfront as well, which for our residents is really important. We see you go down there any morning, any evening, and there's hundreds of people walking and jogging, running up and down the seafront, which is really nice. They really connect with that kind of, with the seaside location. But our parks, absolutely beautiful all over the city, and they're really important to our residents for their own well-being and to make sure they've got somewhere to go out and enjoy.
I mean, Southend's quite unique with that you're rejuvenating it, you're bringing more life to a seaside town, because what we see around the UK is a lot of seaside towns very much struggling and everyone moving inward. What would you say to support other seaside towns using the model that you've built in Southend to keep those communities alive? We haven't
completely cracked the nut, but we're definitely going in the right direction. And I think there's been some media out fairly recently, repositioning Southend in a really positive light. Our councillors have been really key in that, and the administration have been key in driving really hard the about events and the pride in the city. So we're really trying to evangelise that as much as we can, and trying to get the whole community on board.
As in, is it the legacy of people who've lived there the whole time, or you trying to bring new energy in from new people moving to Southend and them to talk about it and have a positive ripple effect?
So I think a bit of both, and I think it's really about the people who are living in our city and spending all their time in there, really taking pride in their own place. So, and that can be anything from reporting things to doing something about it themselves, or joining community groups and getting involved. But I think the more people can be proud and demonstrate that pride in the place that they spend their time and they live and they bring their children up and all that kind of stuff, that's really important. And I think the whole of the built environment is important for that, because that's the bit that people see, they can touch. You arrive somewhere and you when you arrive, that's what you see and you feel, isn't it? It's clean, it's looked after, there's interesting buildings, there's good wayfinding, and you can know where to go for things, and you get an early impression. So I think we're definitely going in the right direction, but it's hard turning a city, making those big changes at a scale. It takes time, and it takes a lot of investment, and we have to be careful and clever with where we put the money and where we put the energy.
Initiatives
absolutely
like
fundamental, fundamental getting the community
Did
behind
a lot
it.
of the locals come down to see it today as well?
There was just as we were coming off from the early morning event, there was a a strong flow of the general
Amazing.
public coming the other way. So yeah, lots of people coming down to read and learn.
And I know something else you're involved in there is the high street and the regeneration there. How challenging is it nowadays to keep those high streets alive, especially in seaside towns?
It's very difficult. I think Southend actually we've done pretty well. Our vacancy rates are fairly low, well, in line with other places. But that retail environment is difficult. It's challenging. We invested in the Victoria Shopping Centre, which is a significant asset at the top of our high street, just 3 months before we had lockdown. Interesting time to buy a shopping centre.
I don't think you knew,
But
did you?
yeah, no, we didn't know at the time. So that we learned a lot about it very fast at that point in time, because that was our first kind of dabble into that made big retail assets. That's been fascinating. We bought it because as the local authority, a lot of people have an expectation on us to do stuff to change the high street and to change the feel of the high street. But actually, the ownership of our high street is really diversified, and the council owned the highway, and that was about it. So we felt actually, if we're going to really make a difference here, we need to own some of it. And when that shopping centre came to the market, we thought that could be a great opportunity, because it's immediately adjacent to the Better Queensway regeneration development that I was talking about as well. And it was available at a time in the market when the value for money was okay and quite good. And we've done a lot with it actually, with some really exciting initiatives and projects. And interestingly, it's one that, again, mentioning Steve Norris from Lambeth Smith Hampton has talked about regularly in his national and regional presentations that he's done about high street regeneration and shopping centres. We've done some interesting stuff in there, bringing in a phlebotomy unit and partnering with NHS. We've got a sexual health clinic in there. We brought in early doors kind of competitive bar sports like Boom Battle Bar and an Indie Rock, which is an indoor bouldering centre, to change the way that people interact with the high street. So instead of trying to force retail, we've said we need to do other things, bring people in for different reasons, spend more time in the city centre, come in, do a wider variety of things, and often with things like Indie Rock, for example, it may well be that plenty of adults use it as well, but the children can come in, get dropped off while the parents go off into town.
I guess because what you have is an amazing beach location for the summer where everyone can stay outside and use the pier, but now what you've done is create something all year round where people can go to and enjoy health and well-being, because I think that is where the high street has a place. We might be buying everything on Amazon because we want instant gratification, but actually there is a place for experiential things to go and do and touch and feel.
Absolutely spot on, and that year-round, all-weather thing is something that Southend has perhaps not had in abundance and certainly hasn't been able to shout about before, but I think increasingly we are a year-round destination. We put festivals on at all different times of the year, really big events programme, bringing lots of visitors into the city. We've got a population of less than 200, about 185,000 population, but we see over 7 million visitors a year coming into Southend. So the visitor economy, hugely important to our local businesses and to the way that the city operates as a whole, actually. So and a large proportion of day trippers, because it's so accessible from London. 2 main lines into London, you can be in and out in 50 minutes. It's just very close, and you're out by the sea. So we're kind of London's beach.
Are you targeting day trippers, or do you want people to come and stay over? Like, where's your kind of marketing focus with Southend? So
day trippers bring an element of tourism to the city. We would really like people to come for longer. So we've got some fantastic theatre offerings, and there's some fantastic property related projects in and around our theatres. We're spending about £6 million on the Cliffs Pavilion at the moment, expanding that. That's one of the big touring theatres that takes shows from London and elsewhere. Really busy all the time, just extending and improving all the bar and circulation areas in there at the moment with some love funding. Yeah, there's a lot going on. It's exciting, but that cultural offer is really strong. We would really like to get to more people coming for the weekend. Come along for the weekend. Come, go to the theatre, go out to some restaurants, go and have a round of golf. There's lots to do. There's just enjoy it. Come and enjoy the seafront.
Well, you're selling me.
Well, there you go. You'll have to come and have a trip.
There we go.
Yeah.
I will come and have
Brilliant.
a trip. What do you think about your personality and your personal skills that make you good in your role? You're obviously very passionate.
Passionate, definitely. And I mean, property is my experience of my work in property, particularly in the more complicated things and the regen and those kind of things. But also from a leadership perspective and bringing your teams on board, it's all about actually people and relationships, and finding ways to solve tricky problems by building relationships that are constructive, where everybody understands what their goals are, to see if you can find something that works for everybody. And if you can find something that works for everybody, there's normally a way forward. And I suppose what I kind of revel in is that ability to find a solution to something that is difficult, and then turn it into something very visible, which is place changing and it leaves a lasting impact. So it's a privilege to be able to work in that space.
It's all about open communication. And do you feel like you have that strength with LSH to get help with that problem solving? Like, can you go to a company like them and outsource some issues?
Absolutely. I think they've got some really great people, and we talked about the importance of that personality piece. I think my experience with Lambert Smith Hampton has been they've got some really good people, many of whom I've had relationships with over a very long period of time. It's obviously a good company to work for. They've got people who've been there for a very long time. Always happy to pick up the phone, have a chat, see whether is there a way we can get through this. There's also a really important relationship with ACES. So ACES is the Association of Chief Estate Surveyors in the public sector, which is an organisation of the kind of the senior property leaders across the whole of the public sector, mainly local authority, but increasingly we've got representatives from fire, police, NHS, the whole, central government bodies, all across the organisation coming together. It's an organisation run by its members, for its members, and Lambert Smith Hampton is one of our gold sponsors, really key part in that. And they, we were working just a couple of weeks ago. There was a big event in Milton Keynes, which Lambert Smith Hampton had pulled together, which we brought speakers from a range of places to. So the relationship with ACES is really important. We have a number of those Lambert Smith Hampton colleagues who sit both in our branch, which is in the Eastern branch, but nationally as well. So that's really important.
That's really amazing. Okay, now if budget wasn't an issue, what else would you bring to Southend-on-Sea? What would you do? Okay, you've got all the money in the world. What would you do to make it even more community driven? I
mean, there's a long-standing ambition of getting the Elizabeth line out there to start with, to really further improve those connections. The infrastructure is a challenge. We are, the city is very built up right to the boundaries. There's a lot of things we could spend an awful lot of money on in Southend, which would really help and make things better. But housing is a particular challenge, and in order to be able to unlock the ability to deliver housing at scale for our next generations, to make sure people have got somewhere to go and live without having to move a long way away, we do need to make sure we secure that infrastructure investment, and that is not cheap. There's also, we've got an airport in Southend as well, an international airport flying all over Europe and beyond, they were heavily hit by COVID, but are recovering very strongly now and doing really well. It'd be great to see continue to work closely with the airport and bring further investment in around that, which can support our both inward tourism and our outward tourism, and the reach across to much wider parts of Europe and beyond. So, yeah, absolutely.
Especially after COVID, we are seeing how important well-being is. How much of a challenge is that for the public sector to deliver?
So it is a challenge, and it's really important as well, I think. So everybody's working harder and harder, longer and longer hours, and I think things become increasingly complicated as we learn more about the environments that we occupy. And one of the projects that I've been involved with was started by a chap called Jonathan Stevenson, who's the chief executive of Rochford and Brentwood councils in Essex. He started an initiative a few years ago called the Public Sector Challenge. After he lost a couple of colleagues at Brentwood Council to cancer, they decided to go and start walking. So he took a team up they did the National Three Peaks Walk. I think that was in 2023, and it was very popular. And then I got involved in it in 2024, their second year of doing this. We went up and did the Yorkshire Three Peaks. I took a team of about 7 or 8 of us went from the council, and we took a team from ACES as well. All went up there and did that, and then it's built from there. So we took 35 to London for the London Bridges last year, another 15 or so from both ACES and the council up to, we did the Peak District this year, and we've got the next one building is January the 17th. We've got a big walk again, London Bridges, 15k or 25k. So we're bringing my challenge to my organisation. I want 50 of us to go this year.
Amazing.
And we're way past that now already, so that's really good. So we're really getting people involved in that, getting out, fresh air, walking, talking to each other in a different context, taking the busyness out of things, and just spending some time walking with people is really lovely. It's been really.
That's how you get to know the people, isn't it?
It's how you get to know the people, but it's been transformative for me, for my health, mental and physical health. Has been really important. I think for everybody who's got involved in it, they've found another community of people. So 800 or so people we took up to the Peak District in September this year. Really impactful, lots of smiling faces, lots of tired legs at the end of the day, but it's brilliant.
Together.
Yeah, and all raising money for cancer research and British Heart Foundation. So across the events so far, we've pushed that well over 330,000 we've raised across those.
Oh, that's
so
incredible!
It's brilliant. So
Yeah, people are far too humble, aren't they? They think that they'll be seen as arrogant if they talk about achievements.
Yeah.
And actually, we wouldn't know. You've got to celebrate yourself.
Absolutely. And I think some of that's busyness, isn't it? You finish one thing and move straight on to the next.
Yeah.
But actually taking time to take a step back, I don't know, to celebrate it a little
The
bit.
team
to
is
talk
there
about
not
it.
just to support you when mistakes happen or risks get taken. They're there to celebrate with you as well, aren't they?
Absolutely. And to talk about the great work that's going on. And
I think it really is inspirational what you're doing there. And you hear quite a lot of doom and gloom about British seaside towns. And I think it's amazing to hear something so positive with so much ambition and potential for improvement. So thank you for being part of that. And I hope that many other places follow suit.
thank you.
Thank you, Emma.
It's really exciting. Thanks very
Thank you.
much.